What I wanted to do is, in this session, is just to kind of continue on some of the themes that we already started. In fact, this session is about something I think that is really sort of at the heart of what innovation is really about. In fact, this started, the case that you had in front of you began with a question. And it's a question that I got from a senior executive. He came to me and he asked me, he said, you know, Professor, he said, I've been working on innovation for a long time. I've done a lot of things. I've done amazing things on our processes and all these things. But one of the biggest challenges that I face is my company's culture. You know, I mean, with all the processes and everything that I do, how do I change my culture? How do I make them sort of be more entrepreneurial? How do I make them to take more risk? How do I do that? And as you know, professors often do, is when they don't know the answer, they say, oh, that's a really great question. And just to buy myself some time. And I thought, in fact, it was a great question. And rather than me just kind of saying something which was not based on any evidence, I thought at the time, why not actually throw the question out there and ask some of the people that I know whether they have any experiences, whether rather than asking them how they can change a culture, is whether they actually know companies that have a great innovation culture. And then we can kind of look at them and figure out why. And so I asked around, and I asked a number of people, and they mentioned a number of companies. But one of the things that I noticed is that little company at the time, which was kind of unknown, IDEO, kept on coming up. They said, yeah, you could look at this and this company, but this small company that we've just worked with, they're kind of different. They're unique. You should really take a look at them. And after enough people said that, I thought, maybe I should. So I called at the time, the co-founder and CEO, Dave Kelly. I called him and I said, you know, Dave, a lot of people have told me about you. I've never heard of you. And can you tell me what you do? Can you explain it to me? He said, why don't you just come and watch us? I said, sure. I was on the plane. I was over there. And I basically got in there and I watched them. And I wrote it all up in a case study. And the case study that in front of you actually is probably one of the most taught case studies actually at Harvard Business School. And what we're doing with this case study, so our plan today is we're going to use this case study to answer this question. What are the sort of things that sort of create an innovative culture? And rather than looking at the big picture, like, you know, this is not a strategy class or anything like this. We're going to look at the little things, the kinds of things that you can do tomorrow morning when you go back to work. The little practices that when you put them all together actually end up with this result that you have this really unique and innovative culture. So this session, you're going to be detectives like Sherlock Holmes, and you're going to solve a puzzle. Well, we're going to be solving it together. Yeah? Now, this puzzle begins with a decision point. And that is, you're now the CEO of IDEO. You're David Kelly, and you're faced with a dilemma. You've just finished up the development of the Palm 5, which you did for Palm, the company Palm. And the Palm 5, I don't know if any of you remember, really was a revolutionary product which essentially triggered the PDA market, personal digital assistant market. It was kind of like the iPhone of its time. And IDEO did it, the whole project, they themselves, turnkey. Two people from Palm, Donna Dubinsky and Jeff Hawkins, they leave Palm, they get venture capital, and they start their own company. So they've got money, but they have a problem. They don't have a product. So they come back to David Kelly, and they said, Dave, we want you to help us. We want you to create the first product, our first product, but we have a constraint. We want you to create this product in less than half the amount of time that it took you to do the Palm 5 because we need it by Christmas. Okay, so that's the challenge. You are now the CEO of IDEO. What should David Kelly do? Or what should IDEO do? Here are the three options. Option 3, no, decline the project. Option number 1, accept the project with no just with that constraint, just as it's formulated, with less than 50% of time. And then option 2, try to get more time, ask for more time, and then maybe accept. Yeah. Now, just with a quick show of hands, just wanted to see your recommendation. By the way, don't be afraid, you can change your mind. It's okay. Yes, I'm not going to hold you to it, but let's start for those of you who is brave enough to decline. Option number 3. Just going to count quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, okay. There's only one thing. These numbers have to add together at the end, yes? Let me do option number 1. Just accept it. Okay, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I'm have to now. Maybe I would say maybe around 40 or something like that. And option number 2. Okay, that would be the rest. And I believe if you check my math, they add up to the total. Yes. Okay, so let's hear it. You're the CEO, you've got your recommendations. We heard some, who is decline, right? We had a decline here? Yes. Why would you decline?
Because we cannot do everything. There are projects which are impossible to make.
Yes.
And maybe this is one of the projects. So it will cost us a lot of work. At the end, we will develop the product which we won't have time enough. So it won't be good enough.
Ah.
I'm not telling that it will be extraordinary.
Yes.
It won't be even good enough.
Yes.
It will lot of time, client won't be happy. So maybe sometimes you have to be brave enough to say no.
Which obviously doesn't apply to the rest of your colleagues here. Well, yeah. So you have to be brave enough to say no. That's what he said. Do you agree? No. You don't agree? Okay. So what do you recommend? First one. Yes. Yes. So you would accept it because you said you never have enough time. Okay, mostly, well, let's say never. Never have enough time to do anything. So we should be able to do it twice as fast. Yes? Let's hear from you. This is a debate. You now get to play CEO of this company. Yeah, we have others. Others in the middle, others point of view. Yeah. What do you think? Just see.
Okay, I agree. We never have enough time, and if we don't have time, we can also have new people help us to the project. So
Oh, you want to add more people?
yeah, for example.
Okay, just add more people.
Yeah, you need to find different solutions.
So just make a project much bigger. Add more people. Good?
Right amount of pressure.
Speak up.
Right amount of pressure is
Oh, pressure. Right amount of pressure.
to go.
So more pressure is better.
No, it's the right amount of pressure. It's like
Okay, tell me, what is the right amount of pressure?
how many people you have, how much money you have, how much time you have. It's like many things.
So right amount of pressure, and you're saying 50% is about right. That's about the right amount of pressure to get them to wake up. Or incentives.
Yes,
What?
a lot of money.
A lot of money. Who are you giving the money to? So you add a lot more people and give them a lot more money.
For meeting the deadlines on the creative process every week, they have to be assessed every
Yes. And who's going to pay for all that a lot more money? I don't know. Okay. Somebody has to pay. Yeah, maybe the client, but pay them a lot more. Give them big incentives. Maybe that's the way to do it. What do you think? What do you think? What would you recommend?
I mean, I don't know yet, but right amount of pressure, it sounds like academic.
Yeah, academic is bad, right? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So what do you think?
There is never right amount of pressure, or there is pressure or not pressure.
Okay, so what do you recommend? Yes. Which option do you recommend? Or do I need to put the right amount of pressure on you, or? No, no? Yes.
Push as much as you can.
Push as much as you can. So which option do you recommend? 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2! Okay, so very decisive. Yes. And why?
Because you know, it's always good to step back and to see where you are.
Okay, so you want to step back, and so you want to use that time of reflection, and you want to convince the client to give you more time. How would you convince the client? What is the argument? Anybody, I mean everybody, you know, there has so many votes, the rest, you know. How would you convince the client? Insanely great. Oh, okay. Insanely great product. Well, but what if the client says, that all sounds really good, but we really insanely need it by Christmas? What do you do then? Then you accept. Okay, so if the client says, I'm sorry, we need it by Christmas anyway, then you would accept. What would you say? Oh, he wants to move Christmas. That's how to meet the deadline. You move Christmas. How about that? Yes. Let me just see in the back. Yes.
Can you do something different in the sense that...
Which option? Are you in the middle option as well?
No, I'm in the first one, but I'm going to alter the first option. Can you test to make a product that would be insanely great, but you don't have time to actually produce, you know, a minimum awesome product, but you can actually get...
A minimum awesome product.
But you can at least get like some pre-order sales so people have a Christmas present, but then it's going to come and then they're going to be exciting to wait to roll out when the new product comes back.
Also, so you want to accept orders by Christmas and then maybe deliver by Easter.
You have like, for example, people have like gift cards, you know, like for example on Christmas. So they have this awesome product that's going to come out, but it's not actually like in the box.
So let's see, stretch the timeline somehow. Really creative. An empty box or something like that. And then maybe later. Somehow, if we can somehow be creative at stretching it. Maybe that. What do you recommend? I'm not following you, by the way. Yes. Okay, yes. Yes. Yes.
But for example, 4 months, 5 months later, how is it possible? Second product then to be better.
Oh, okay, great. So you would do a product, just a product, for Christmas, but then the better product comes next generation.
It's also a benefit, but not like all new ones.
Okay. So something that's good enough or something, okay. So the good enough, so you would, I assume, the technical word is to de-scope it. So you'd have to sort of narrow the scope a little bit. Okay, reduce the complexity, so de-scope. fewer features, make it simpler and all that sort of thing. And then next time, next product will be really awesome. The next one that you develop and launch. How about that? Happy with that? Yes. Okay.
You have second team which is still working on the product specification. Yes.
Ah, so it goes against the culture, and they're not done yet with Palm 5, right?
So it would result in
Yeah. So it's an ethical, yeah,
there is an ethical problem, and
Yeah.
probably the teams will stop talking to each other. Yes, so all the reading process will have to fail.
Ah, so now we have a problem. We've got an ethical issue, which didn't bother most people here, but you have an ethical issue. Then I heard also use secretive communication, right? So we have a secrecy issue too, because there won't be open communication as well, yeah? So these are all sort of good arguments. But yes, what do you think? Is he right?
No, I would like to say that I'm the option and I will also my people that you're great, that we are creative, and we can handle with that.
How will you convince them?
I will show them our last project.
Uh-huh.
If we handle with that, then we should do this one.
So be creative. Find ways to accelerate it, yeah? What do you think? Here in the middle? What do you think? You? Yes, you looking away from me. Yes, you. No. Well, they're all looking away from me, yes. No, but you're blue shirt, yes.
It's just the second way, and I think it's not good to concentrate on the timeline. We should concentrate on the product.
Okay, so you would say, this is what you tell your client. Concentrate on the product, forget the timeline, forget Christmas. But what if they say, this is our first product, Christmas is our market. We need to be out there. We can't. What would you tell them? How would you convince them?
That's a great product, so it's worth doing.
Insanely great. Would you accept it if they insist? If they say, we need it by Christmas. Would you accept the project, yes or no? No! Okay. So, I mean, that's the question here, right? If you're being pushed. So he says no, so we got 4.5 here. Yes. So you got 4. Probably no. Yep. Yes, please.
You can do it in Microsoft way, so we can accept the deadline and don't care about the outcome.
Oh! This is a clever way. We just tell them, that's fine, we'll do it, and we know we won't make it anyway. Yeah, you can do that. But do you think that's going to work? Yeah. And again, you're running the company. It's your company. What do you think? Further? Here, you, this row. What do you think? Anybody?
Okay, so for me, I think that my colleague is right. I would decline the offer because you don't want to show the customer something that is bad because that can hurt you even more. Even if the time passes by, it's better to wait.
By the way, has anybody so far changed their mind? You have. From? And why? Oh, because the Christmas, because that's a big opportunity, or? So it's saying Christmas opportunity. So that's great. We have, in this whole room, we have one single person who changed their mind. And we don't seem to be converging in any way, just as I expected. So let me think about, let's do this another way, okay? I think to really figure out whether they should do this or not, I think we need more information. We need to go a little deeper into IDEO, and we need to understand how the company really ticks. And once we really understand how the company ticks sort of in detail, maybe it will become obvious in terms of what they should be doing. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to take you on a tour of IDEO. I'm going to take you inside IDEO, and we're going to go through that tour, and you're going to be observers in that tour. So it's not just relaxing and watching, but you're going to have to actually write down what you see. So you have paper in front of you. It's really important. And we go through this tour. There will be a lot of information in the tour. And what I want you to do is I want you to take detailed notes. I don't want you to be judgmental. I just want you to be an observer. Just observe what you see with no value judgment. And write down the facts. And the more that you can write down, in fact, the better it is. So go for quantity. And I want you to write down observations about the following categories. Category number 1, process. Anything that you see that relates to IDEO's process of innovation. Yeah, so make a headline in your paper. The second category, organization. How are they organized for innovation? And you will get a lot of information. Organization. Again, make a heading on your paper about organization. Management. How do they manage innovation? What is the role of management? Are they needed? That's our third headline. And the fourth headline is culture. What are your observations about IDEO's culture? What is kind of unique about their culture? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to start the tour. Just move it off to the, oops, getting stuck here. Move it off to the side here. Perfect. Most excellent. And I'm going to start the tour. And again, the job here is to write down as much as you can. Ready? Got your pens ready? Okay, let's go.
It used to be that you deferred to the boss.
Is it the boss is always going to have the best ideas? Not likely.
Here, nimble fingers, alert minds, and tireless machines.
And it used to be in most companies that chaos was discouraged.
This is where the crazies live. This is where we do our work. It's different.
Good morning. Good morning. Good
Used to be you were supposed to climb the corporate ladder.
Good morning.
Status is who comes up with the best ideas, not who's the oldest, not who's been with the company longest, not who has that biggest title. If you go into a culture and there's a bunch of stiffs going around, I can guarantee they're not likely to invent anything.
You could stack this up big as you want.
That's great. Thanks a lot. And we had a great time today.
Well, forget the way it used to be. Tonight, the deep dive. One company's secret weapon for innovation. A lot further along in this broadcast, near the end as a matter of fact, you will hear one of the central characters suggest that we look around. The only thing that's not designed by anybody, he will say, is nature. Actually, you could say the same thing by observing that the only designs that don't require constant modification are the ones we find in nature. But the point is well taken. From the buildings in which we live and work to the cars we drive or the knives and forks with which we eat, everything we use was designed to create some sort of marriage between form and function. Does it work, and can we make it look interesting or attractive? What is truly amazing is how long we tend to put up with things that may not work particularly well or may look especially unattractive simply because we're accustomed to them and because no one has ever suggested redesigning those things. There's an interesting distinction between design and invention. Whoever came up with the idea of dental floss, for example, was an inventor, but the man or woman who put it inside that clever little plastic box that lets you tear off just the right length, that was a designer. Now, how does the process of designing a better product work? And would it be interesting to watch that process? When we first broadcast this program back in February, we weren't at all sure what you would think, but judging by the number of you who ordered video cassettes of the program and the number of people who contacted the industrial product design firm that is featured in this program, you liked it a lot. Here was the premise of the program. We went to IDEO, the product design folk, and said, take something old and familiar, like, say, the shopping cart, and completely redesign it for us in just 5 days. ABC News correspondent Jack Smith tells us what happened next.
9 in the morning, day one, and these people have a deadline to meet.
So welcome to the kickoff of the shopping cart project.
This is Palo Alto, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley, and these are designers at IDEO, probably the most influential product development firm in the world. Designers are the reason TVs have square screens, chairs 4 legs, and toothbrushes nowadays those squishy handles. In fact, it was IDEO that designed those squishy handles. IDEO has designed everything from high-tech medical equipment to the 25-foot mechanical whale in the movie Free Willy and the first computer mouse for Apple, Smith ski goggles, Nike sunglasses, NEC computer screens, hundreds of products we take for granted.
This is called the Neat Squeeze toothpaste tube, which...
You invented that. The man who runs IDEO is Dave Kelly, a Stanford engineering professor with a Groucho Marx mustache, a dad of genius, and an approach to innovation that usually works.
Well, thank you, Fred.
But not always.
Thanks a lot. I can show you some products that failed. Came up with this idea called monster shoes, where you take these little monsters and lace them into your shoes, like this. And we built a bunch of them, and I didn't want those either. So.
Mostly what IDEO designs, though, does work, and it works very well. Dave and his design teams create about 90 new products every year.
The point is that we're not actually experts at any given area. You know, we're kind of experts on the process of how you design stuff. So we don't care if you give us a toothbrush, a toothpaste tube, a tractor, a space shuttle, you know, a chair. It's all the same to us. We want to figure out how to innovate by using our process, applying it.
And so for the next 5 days, the team will apply that process to bringing the supermarket shopping cart into the 21st century.
I think first we should maybe all acknowledge that it's kind of insane to do an entire project in a week.
Project leader is Peter Skillman, a 35-year-old Stanford engineer. Project leader because he's good with groups, not because of seniority. He's only been at IDEO for 6 years. The rest of the team is eclectic, but that's typical here. Whitney Mortimer, Harvard MBA. Peter Coughlin, linguist. Tom Kelly, Dave's brother, marketing expert. Jane Fulton-Suri, psychologist. Alex Kazaks, 26, a biology major, who's turned down medical school 3 times because he's having too much fun at IDEO.
Kids climbing up and doing this.
Kids do that?
No. Safety emerges early as an important issue.
22,000 child injuries a year, and so they're hospitalized injuries. I mean, there are many others.
Not reported in the store, that you actually have to go to the
that's
emergency room.
hospitalized, right.
And theft. It turns out a lot of carts are stolen.
You know, what is the average life of a cart? Does it last 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And how big is this theft thing?
10 a.m. As the team works, it becomes clear there are no titles here, no permanent assignments.
And the other side says, gives us a lot of help, says, be safe.
Everyone appears to be equal, and they love to mock corporate America.
I'll give you status. I'll give you a big red ball on a post, and that says you're a big guy. If you got a ball, you're a senior vice president. You know, what do I care? The desk, the red ball, it's all the same. In a very innovative culture, you can't have a kind of hierarchy of here's the boss and the next person down, the next person down, the next person down, because it's impossible that the boss is the one who's had the insightful experience with shopping carts. It's just not possible.
According to Kelly, even employees who merely listen to the boss don't add that much either.
So you gotta hire people who don't listen to you, and that, I don't think corporate America wants to hear that right yet.
I think we ought to start making those lists about the kinds of questions that we're going to ask.
The team splits into groups to find out firsthand what the people who use, make, and repair shopping carts really think.
Okay, go.
The problem with the plastic cart is the wind catches it. Yeah. And these things have been clocked at 35 across the parking lot.
Oh.
Man, that's actually a pretty good point.
The trick is to find these real experts, and so that you can learn much more quickly than you could by just kind of doing it the normal way and trying to learn about it yourself.
From everything I read, these things aren't that safe either, you know? So probably the seat itself is going to have to be redesigned.
What you're seeing here is the kind of social science, like anthropologists, you know, like you go and study tribes. What is it that they do that we can learn from that will help us design a better cart?
One of the interesting things for me is looking at how people really don't like to let go of the cart, except for the professional shopper, whose strategy is to leave the cart at various places.
In corporate America, many bosses measure whether their people are, the good people or the people who are performing are the ones that they see at their desk all the time. That couldn't be further from the truth. The people who are really getting the information are out here talking to the buzzes of the world, going to meet other experts, much more useful than sitting at your desk.
3:30 in the afternoon, and the group is back at IDEO. There is no let-up.
Each team is going to demonstrate and communicate and share everything that they've learned today. People went off in the four corners of the earth and are coming back with the golden keys to the innovation.
A shopping cart has been clocked at 35 miles an hour traveling through a parking lot in the wind.
We were in the store, 2 hours, and it was truly frightening just to see the kind of stuff going on.
You ought to designate some people to make damn sure that the store owner's point of view is represented.
After 9 straight hours, the team is tired. They call it a day.
So,
everybody cool?
Well, that's great. Thanks a lot. We had a great time today. Yeah. Get together and start here.
Day 2 and the start of IDEO's unique brand of brainstorming. They call it a deep dive, a sort of total immersion in the problem at hand. IDEO's mantra for innovation is written everywhere. One conversation at a time. Stay focused. Encourage wild ideas. Defer judgment. Build on the ideas of others.
That's the hardest thing for people to do, is to restrain themselves from criticizing an idea. So if anybody starts to nail an idea, they get the bell, you know.
The deep dive begins, and for the next few hours, the ideas pour out and are posted on the walls.
Oh, the blind, the privacy blind. Like when you're buying 6 cases of condoms, no one sees.
It's more
Nesting is, it sort of has to nest. If it doesn't nest, we don't have a solution.
How about Velcro pants and Velcro seats for the kids, and you just drop them down on there. And
Like Velcro seats? Velcro pants for kids?
Yeah, see, you have to have some wild ideas. If then you build on those wild ideas, and they end up being better ideas than if you said, if everybody only came up with sane things, kind of appropriate things, you'd never have any points to take off to build a really innovative idea.
It's organized chaos.
Organized chaos. It's not organized. What it is it's focused chaos.
By 11 a.m., the group begins narrowing down the hundreds of ideas written or drawn on the walls. How? By voting for them.
Vote with your Post-it, not with an idea that's cool, but with an idea that's cool and buildable. If it's too far out there and it can't be built in a day, then I don't think we should vote on it.
Why not have you be the judge? You're the boss.
Because I'm going to be wrong. It's the team that's able to really judge with the best ideas.
Otherwise, ideas wouldn't come out?
That's right. Enlightened trial and error succeeds over the planning of lone genius.
Enlightened trial and error succeeds over the planning of the lone genius. If anything sums up IDEO's approach, that is it. That and the focused chaos that seems to go with it.
I take a point of view, I call it the sport utility vehicle cart.
It is noon. Worried that the team is drifting, what can only be called a group of self-appointed adults under Dave Kelly holds an informal side session.
We don't want to tell them what to build, or else we take away the benefit of the whole thing, right?
What needs should they optimize their solution to?
Yes.
The purpose is to refocus the deep dive.
Maybe we arbitrarily say we do 5 teams. 4 or 5 teams. 4 or 5 teams, and we give each team a need area. Hey, can we grab everybody over to the wall here? There has to be a command decision. It becomes very autocratic for a very short period of time in defining what things people are going to work on.
Like it or not, the team is told it will split into groups to build mock-ups covering 4 areas of concern that have been identified. Shopping, safety, checkout, and finding what you're looking for.
I noticed that toward the end of the process, the adults took over.
Yeah, that's because we have no choice but to stop that cycle. I mean, there's if you don't work under time constraints, you could never get anything done because it's a messy process and go on forever.
While the team starts building prototypes, Dave Kelly takes me on a tour of the rest of IDEO.
What's happening in here is that's a client meeting. That's a first client meeting. That's the first time we've met with the client. So we haven't trained them yet. if we took them straight from there into a room where music was blaring and everybody was throwing Nerf darts at each other, that would be a little hard to take. You know, so we're warming them up. But this is this is where the crazies live. This is where we do our work. It's different. You can tell whether a place is playful in about the first 15 minutes as you walk down the hall. Being playful is of huge importance for being innovative. I mean, if you go into a culture and there's a bunch of stiffs going around, they're not, I can guarantee they're not likely to invent anything.
Invent anything like this futuristic-looking instrument for kids.
So no matter what you do with that thing, you always
sound great.
You always sound good.
You have to make it so that this can happen.
Whoa, it didn't break.
No, it didn't break.
There's a whole department at IDEO devoted to toys. Turns out to be one of its most profitable areas. Fun, too.
So it got these little wings, and no matter what you do, if I get in trouble here, it's always a spiral.
At IDEO, they found that fresh ideas come faster in a fun place. Not only is the furniture on wheels to suit the needs of the moment, but people are encouraged actually to build their own work areas.
And they were designing this space, and they said to me, you know, we'd like to have, you know, $4,000 extra in our budget for a DC-3 wing. And I said, DC-3, you have to have that? And they said, yeah, they have to have it. So
that's a DC-3 wing.
Piece of a DC-3 wing, yeah.
And that's just decor.
That's decor. That's ambiance, you know, that says we're weird, and we're proud of it.
Umbrellas on the ceiling to shade computer screens from direct sunlight. And bicycles on ropes to prevent clutter.
The first guy who hung a bike up on a thing, he didn't come to me and ask me. He didn't ask some facilities person was okay. He tried it. And then, like, he waited and see if anybody complained. If nobody complained, another guy hung a bike up. And pretty soon, everybody's got their bikes up and nobody's complained, right? So it's that whole thing of trying stuff and ask forgiveness, you know, instead of asking permission, is the way people come up with new ideas.
IDEO has such a reputation for innovation that client companies are increasingly asking Dave not just for new products, but also to remake their corporate cultures. You may be looking at the workplace of the future here.
It's one thing to be able to do a product once in a while, but if you can build a culture and a process where you routinely come up with great ideas, that's what the companies really want. Okay, Peter, we're done.
Back at the shop, it is 6 o'clock, and the 4 mock-ups are ready for showing.
Baskets also can be, if you think you will have more volume, baskets can be put in.
A modular shopping cart you pile hand baskets onto. A high-tech cart that gets you through the traffic jam at checkout.
That you could mount a scanner on the shopping cart so that you as the customer, as you pull it off the shelf, would scan each item.
One that's built around child safety. and another that lets shoppers talk to the supermarket staff remotely.
Yeah, where can I find a yogurt?
But the adults, again, decide more work needs to be done before the mock-ups can be combined into one last prototype.
Why don't we have all the carts come up here for a second? I think you take a piece of each one of these ideas and kind of back it off a little bit and then put it in the design.
The design is still not there. But there's another motto at IDEO: fail often in order to succeed sooner. And some of the team will be up half the night trying to put together a design that finally does work. It is day 5, and Dave Kelly has no idea what the final cart looks like. Only the team does.
If they kind of got their heads down, they don't look at me, I'm nervous. You know, if they say, wait till you see it, then I know we're in good shape. So I'm getting wait until you see it. I think that'll be good.
There it is! So we took the best elements out of each prototype, designed this entire cart in a day, and then this cart was fabricated in a day with an amazing team of people in our machine shop pulling this off, working in shifts throughout the night.
Wow, I'm impressed.
So are we.
The cart, which is designed to cost about the same as today's carts, is different in every other way. Hand baskets that stack in a metal frame, and major improvements for all.
You just lift the handle up, you drop put the children in, and then you can close the handle right over them, and they instantly have some little bit of a work surface that they can play with.
What do you think?
Well, I'm very proud of the team. I think it's great.
Does this work for you?
Works for me great. It's also beautiful. I mean, let's take it over to a local supermarket and see what they say.
Yeah, it works really well.
The cart's wheels turn 90 degrees so it can move sideways. No more lifting up the rear in a tight spot. And you shop in a totally different way.
Rather than taking your cart everywhere you go in the store, through a crowded store like this, it's much more efficient to take a small basket, rush around to where the particular shelves are, and come back and put them back. Put them here, and treat this as like a center for your shopping.
And with a high-tech scanner, so that in the future you skip the checkout traffic jam.
Here's how you would scan an item. You'd reach over and pick up anything like the salad dressing, and I would scan it, and if I want to accept that item, I would just press plus, and then drop it in my basket.
Because stores don't yet have those high-tech scanners the team designed, checking out today means doing it the old-fashioned way. But the bags are hung on hooks on the cart's frame. Remember, there is no basket here.
Why get rid of the big basket?
The basket is tyranny. The basket is tyranny because it's not really needed. If all your stuff ends up in bags, why need the basket in the first place?
Talk to me about theft.
There's no value in this cart without the basket because you can't carry anything in it. It's useless to anybody. You can't use it as a barbecue.
So it's not going to get stolen.
That's right.
So this ought to appeal to store owners then.
Yes.
I love it. I think it looks great.
At first, I was a little shocked, but I think you have some fantastic ideas here. It needs a little refining, but I think that it's great. I mean, we would want them.
It makes us feel great. And she also gave us some really good comments about how we can make this thing better.
Just wherever you are, look around. The only thing that's not designed by somebody is nature. So the trees are not designed by us, but everything you see, every light fitting, every flower vase, every scale, every stand for fruit, everything is designed, has to go through this kind of process. And they can do a better or worse job of innovating or improving, but everything is designed. It has to go through this process.
It wasn't this effortless, oh my God, so that's how it works thing that I saw there. It was actually hard work.
It's a lot of hard work. We all love it, so it doesn't look like it's hard work, but it's a lot of hours.
A lot of hours. Also, an open mind, a boss who demands fresh ideas be quirky and clash with his, a belief that chaos can be constructive, and teamwork, a great deal of teamwork. And these are the recipe for how innovation takes place. This is Jack Smith for Nightline in Palo Alto, California.
I'll be back with a brief update on our story in just a moment. Incidentally, the Nightline shopping cart won a silver award in the Industrial Design Excellence Awards, and there's talk now of developing it commercially. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Good night. Okay, just a few things that I wanted to say before we get started. Something I want to draw your attention to. Some things that he said at the end, which I thought sort of was very profound, but it slips by very quickly. Look around this room. Everything that you see in the space here, ceiling, walls, everything that you see in here has been designed by somebody. There was some design intent. Some of it may have been designed poorly. Some of it may have been designed well. But everything that you sort of look around here has been designed by somebody. Think about your lives. When you get up in the morning, when you get ready, when you go to work, when you spend your day at work, you come home. Almost everything that you do is in an environment that has been designed by somebody. And now even the trees and nature is being designed. Again, some of it may have been designed poorly, some have been designed well, but there was some design intent. Someone made choices, design choices when they created that. But we don't have to stop there. Look at your organizations, your processes, the way you're organized, your business models. Everything that's in your organization has been designed. Someone made a choice about process choices. Someone made a choice about your business models. Someone made a choice about how are you organized functionally versus matrix versus. There's always been some sort of a design choice involved. Imagine now the potential of taking a methodology that's as rigorous as what you just saw, with so much thought and care put into it, and apply it to everything. Everything that's there. Everything that you live in, everything in your organization. This idea is called design thinking. Some of you may have heard about design thinking. It's gotten a lot of attention, even though we've been teaching design thinking for 15 years now. But finally, sometimes good ideas take some time. But now finally everybody's paying attention. Companies are now having chief design officers. And it goes way beyond products. It goes about everything that you do. And not surprisingly, for companies like IDEO and their competitors, they now do a lot of service design, customer experience design. They sometimes go into strategy sessions and they help with strategy design. And they use the same methodology to do this. So that's the power. Now, by the way, because at the time when the video was made, they were quite unknown. Now they're pretty famous. They've been on the cover of many magazines and films and books and all that sort of thing. But at the time, they were pretty unknown. And so they were very happy about being on national television and get free exposure. And not surprisingly, the next day, the telephone started to ring. But much to their surprise, it was their existing customers who mostly called, and the conversation would always go like this. Congratulations, we saw you on television last night. Thank you. Finally, we know what you're doing. But we did have a simple question. We did check over, I called over my friends over in accounting, and we started to look at some of your invoices that you sent us. And we noticed that you've been billing us for more than 1 year, and you can do this in 5 days? So they had a bit of explaining to do. Any case, what I'd like to do is you've written down a lot of things. What I'd like to do is, I'd like to collect. We had process, organization, management, culture. You're the observer. What did you see? Just go a little further back here. What did you see? There's just so much in there, we may not be able to go through everything. Just anything. Just shout it out. What did you see?
Culture-based appreciation of your work.
Appreciation. So how did you see that?
Well, they cheered for each other. When there was a great idea, everyone supported it, and they were not criticizing because to criticize. There was this great feel on another people's idea.
Okay. So build on ideas. Let me just go. Excellent. Yes?
They're all equal.
Equal. Okay, so we have organization here, right? So flat. A flat organization. Is a flat organization good for innovation? What? Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Well, in this sense, yes.
What do you think? I mean, personally, do you think it's good for innovation?
It depends, of course, on organization, but yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Why?
Because if you are not, well, you'll be afraid to speak up about things you are.
Okay. Okay.
Then it's outside. And if you're equal, if you know that you can speak up, if you know that you will be listening, you can find some good ideas, some changes, and some innovations.
Okay. Okay. More observations? We have many. Yes, please. With a hand up. Yeah. Creative workspaces. What's special about that? What did you see? Yeah. So, creative flexible workspace, very important, by the way. The space plays a big role in how you experience work, how you work during the day. It's often underestimated what it can do. There's a lot of research about actually sort of a colleague of mine at MIT many years ago did research about space and communication. And he found it's a thing called Allen's Law. And what he found is, through empirical work, is that space plays a huge role in the way people communicate. And there's a famous curve that was sort of named after him. And what he found is when he plotted the probability of communication against the distance, the physical distance of two individuals, he found, not surprisingly, that the curve dropped off very rapidly. And it doesn't require much distance. That, we were talking about meters, few meters of distance. It only after something like 10, 15 meters or so, the probability of communication had already dropped down below 0.1. And which is part of the reason why sometimes when our office is just a little further apart, our probability of communication drops out very rapidly. And there have been entire buildings designed around minimizing distance between individuals as they're working and walking and living and all this, just to get the probability of communication up. So again, workspace, very important. Yes?
Pretty first of all is cross-functional collaboration. So the team members were psychologists, all of them in one place.
Yes.
It really allows looking at the same challenge from different angles.
So diversity, let me just make sure we get this nailed down. You said they come from what disciplines? We have engineering, psychologists, linguists, even marketing. Even marketing. Hey, it's so radical they even have an MBA on it. And so, why is that so important? Why is diversity so important? Because we know as a manager, I know that managing such diverse teams can be a real pain because the problem is getting alignment between teams like that. So why? What's the value?
Because you can look at the challenge from different angles, and that's very important.
Yes. So the angles or the lenses are really important. Let me just say, if I took all of you, I took you sort of outside into the center, and I asked all of you to take a piece of paper with you and just observe for 15 minutes, and I will tell you to put away your phones and just observe, and then write down what you see, and then come back into the room and then share your observations. Remember, everybody is looking exactly at the same thing, same information. I think what would happen is that many of you would see different things. Now, why would you see different things? Well, because the way we observe, the way we look at things is shaped by our education. Believe me, a psychologist can see very different things than an engineer. I'm an engineer. Nobody ever taught me how to observe anything. You know, they're trained. You know, your gender. I think gender plays a big role because certain perceptiveness about certain things. Perhaps your socioeconomic status. Perhaps, you know, your background in terms of, you know, where you come geographically. I mean, there are all these different factors that give each of you a unique footprint. And that's why you all bring a unique lens to a problem. So when I've got these diverse lenses here, it basically means that it minimizes the risk of overlooking something really important in innovation. I call it blind spots. Products often fail because they have big blind spots in terms of the need space. You're minimizing the risk of having these blind spots when you're sort of adding that diversity. So thank you. But you had something else, yes?
Yeah, two more things. First one is the process itself, it looks like an uncontrolled brainstorm, but it was very properly and very well facilitated.
Ah, yes.
So
Yeah.
It was a functional project manager, and it was really stated there that he is an expert in teamwork. So I think this is extremely important.
Yeah, so we've got that perhaps under management, right? Yeah, yeah. So team leader is not necessarily the most senior technical person, but it's the person who is actually best with teams. Best with teams.
And one more thing, which I personally don't like, is that basically the challenge was like invent something from scratch. I forget about, basically, let's say in a real life, we are talking about improvements. And here, it was completely taken out of space. Just imagine or invent something which is 21st century shopping cart. So
Yes, yes.
It was something like completely out of the ground. It brought, let's say, imagination and ability to execute at the highest level.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's something like not very well related to the reality, because in reality, we are very limited. The only limit there was due date, and they had 5 days. All the rest it was
Only, yes.
and
Yes.
In the real life, we are talking about many assumptions, many limitations.
Yes, yes.
And this is something like a difference between like
Good. Yes, yes. You got the person next to you, immediately his hand goes up.
Yeah, just a comment to that, but at the end of the day, it should, for the stars, you will land on the moon, because what they created wasn't abstract to
Yes.
today's need. What was actually something that looked like a slight improvement of existing. Will they be able to get to that without going to extremes?
Yeah.
I would say no.
So stretch targets. Okay, good. Observations. I want to make sure we get through as much as possible. Let's go over to the left. I've neglected you the whole class. Yes.
Well, I would argue that the solution was taken out of the ground, because as I see, the process was well designed. So an important part of the process is a data collection. And as
Yes.
saw in the movie, they did a lot in order to speak to the key, customers, like customer or somebody who's getting
Yes, so-
the data. So the data was collected, but the questions were well asked. I mean, what's the purpose?
So what do they do? What do they do on the first day? What do they do?
They are asking the right questions.
So they go where? To the source. They go to the source. They go to the context. And what do they do? They ask questions. They observe. They don't run a focus group. You know, they just observe, ask questions, try to understand the problem, and how much time do they take for all this? And then put it all together? Almost a whole day by the time they put it all together, which, by the way, is about 20% of schedule. 20% of schedule is dedicated to understanding the problem. You know, and they don't hire a market research firm, which then subcontracts with someone who runs focus groups, which then subcontracts with somebody else to design surveys and questionnaires, which then subcontracts with somebody else to analyze them. No, they go and they look themselves. They're the creators of these products. They look and they do it themselves. And by the way, they don't allow themselves to jump to a solution before they understand the problem. This is one of the most underappreciated parts often in innovation, because we feel like when we're generating solutions, we're adding value. But if we're just spending time understanding problems, we're not really adding anything. And so they have disciplined themselves so that before we even allowed to go and think about solutions, we ought to spend a significant amount of time immersing ourselves and deeply understand the problem that we're trying to solve. Because organizations get really, really good in developing beautiful solutions to the wrong problems. Yes, we get very good at that. So got it. So they go to the source to observe 20% of the time. What else? What else? Yes? Prototyping. Yes, prototyping. Very, very fast. And process? Process? It's prototyping. In fact, I would argue that prototyping is perhaps one of the most important parts out of everything that they do. I would put prototyping even under culture. They have a prototyping culture, which means that, by the way, is the opposite, what I would call of a prototyping culture is a specification-driven culture, where you kind of sit down and you spend a lot of time writing specifications. They write some specifications, but they immediately jump to prototyping to express what they create. And they even have, it's so important, they even create rules for that. They call it the 3 R's. Now, what are the 3 R's? You read the case. Got 3 R's. So the words start with R.
The last one is right.
Oh, very right answer. Right. Okay. So we got right, rough. Very good. And rapid. Rapid. Now, why would they make these important rules for prototyping? What is the enemy of prototyping? Perfection. Yes, perfection is the enemy of prototyping, because if we sort of spend a lot of time trying to make things perfect, we're never done. It's worse yet because we're making commitments. We're committing ourselves to something that we're really not sure yet about. And so they want to stop this, and that's why they have rapid, right? Rapid is clearly speed is the most important. Do it fast because the half-life of an idea is very short. Rough is good enough because our ideas are rough, therefore the prototypes should be rough. And right means that every prototype is preceded or needs to be preceded by a question. It's supposed to answer a question. So you have to pick the question and then build the right prototype that answers that question. So rough, rapid, very, very important. And prototyping, by the way, it's not just for physical things. The prototyping of services, prototyping of everything. You can prototype services very easily. So they do it for everything. Yeah. So we got prototyping down. Very important. Fundamentally, we got more. Other things? Yes.
For
Ah, okay. Management? Apology, okay. Apology, okay, rather than permission. And why is that so important? Yes. Okay, you have to be empowered as well. Yep. Middle, yes. Yes, you. Just move your glasses up and down. Yes, yes.
Okay, what I loved about the creative process was that actually the natural openness, creativity was unleashed from the people.
Yes.
That goes into the process. And what I actually loved, the fact that it wasn't biased by the existing solutions, so they could kind of free their minds and bring fresh concepts. And that's the creative part, and then you can adapt it to the market and decide whether to go left or right.
Yep.
And then it also relates to culture, because creating this playful work environment also supports unleashing the creativeness and bringing the child in you makes you think like forgetting about your life experience, but going back to kind of like more openness, creativity, and freshness.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Other observations? I want to make sure there are a few more. Let me just here on the side. Yeah, please. Ah, okay. Yeah, so how did they decide? What things did management decide and what did the team decide? You said it. The team decided. What did they decide? But what did they judge?
Selected ideas.
Okay, so the team votes on... So the team votes or decides on the idea. Not management. So why even have management then? I mean, why don't we just get rid of them? So what's management's role then? Yeah.
Which will focus on certain needs, on the needs of the kids, on the needs of the customers, and the needs of, so that the subject cards won't be stolen and so on.
So what is management's role in all this then? What do you think? Supervision? Stop the chaos? Put rules? What is management's role?
I think management was more of a moderator of the whole process. They were encouraging the team to reach their goal.
So management is, if you look at this, management drives the process. Management is about process. They make process decisions. Time, budget, targets, declines. So this is all process-related things. The team focuses on the products, the content. So they vote on ideas and so forth. So there's a clear division, and management rarely gets involved in that. So there's a clear division, and management knows that they have to adjust the way they manage the process depending on where they are, because when you're early in a process, when there's a lot of freedom, a lot of uncertainty, you have to be very loose. Put few boundaries on it. Allow people to express themselves, to come up with wild ideas. But then as you're moving along, management has to change because now they're thinking about making progress, so they have to become more restrictive. They have to divide up the teams because now progress becomes very important as they're sort of trying to manage down what we call a innovation funnel. As they're going down, the rules and the way they manage actually changes. Yeah, great. Got maybe one or two more observations? Quickly. It's down here, yes. Of course. And you would put that on the culture? Failure is okay. Yeah, so it's perfectly accepted. Yeah, so people are kind of free to express themselves. And let me just go with someone else who hasn't. Someone observations on your list? Yes. Speak up. The leader can be wrong. Okay, explain that. Yes. So failure is okay, even for the leader. Isn't it amazing that, I mean, imagine you're on national television and they're making a film on you, and the very first thing that you talk about in the film is to talk about your failures. I mean, how many people do you know who would do that? You know, most people would show off their successes. The very first thing he does is says, let me show you something where we failed, before he even discusses anything else. And so they're quite comfortable discussing this. Just really no stress for them. Now, one more thing I want to quickly point out is, and I know there's a lot more, and I apologize for not being able to get everybody's in, is brainstorming. The whole issue of brainstorming, because everybody does brainstorming, I just wanted to say a few things about that, because this is also something very useful you can use tomorrow. Brainstorming, or as it says, deep dive, is sort of an important part of how they innovate, but the way they brainstorm is a little different. And it focuses, like what we've seen earlier, on simple rules. And so they have a few things that they follow, which they found to be quite important. And they're very simple, but you just have to do it. First of all, rule number 1 is the issue of criticism. One of probably the biggest obstacles to effective brainstorming is criticism. For some reason, we can't help ourselves. It is, I think, it's genetic or something like that. We have, even with the best intentions of not being critical, we immediately fall into a critical mode. Even if we don't say something, we're thinking, right? I'm not going to say anything, but this is a really stupid idea. And we kind of keep it in our heads. We maybe even, on our best behavior, keep it ourselves. I'm not saying criticism is always bad. We need criticism because we also need to kill, when we generate all these ideas, we need to kill some of them. But we just don't do it at the same time. So you have to separate the creator from the critic. We do both creation of ideas and criticizing ideas, but we do it at different points. And I tell you how hard this is. There's a famous motivational speaker in the US called Tony Robbins. And Tony is quite a remarkable guy. And he runs these large sessions with thousands of people around, and they talk about personal problems and all these sorts of things. And he tries to transform them. Usually when he starts out, he tells people that in these big sessions, criticism is not allowed. And to prove to you that I'm serious, I'm bringing a big water gun, like a big sort of gun filled with water. And he tells people at the beginning, if they criticize somebody, he will pull out the water gun and he will shoot them. And he goes through a session, a couple hours. You know what happens at the end of the session with thousands of people? Everybody is wet. Because even with the threat looming on them, not to criticize, in this session, they can't help themselves and they do it anyway. So, again, rule number 1, separate it. Don't eliminate criticism. Criticism is important, but don't do it at the same time, because it will kill things too early. Rule number 2, make it short. Don't make it long, because people get tired very quickly. Make it short. Give yourself a time limit, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And give yourself a production goal, like 40 ideas, 50 ideas, and be serious about the production goal. So, interesting happens. So let's say you have a production goal of 50 ideas in 20 minutes. Number of advantages. First advantage is you don't have time to criticize. If if he yells out an idea and I criticize it and we will argue over it for 5 minutes, I've got one idea. and I've just burned up 5 minutes, and I have 49 to go. It's just impossible. So doing that is really important. You know, it cuts out some of the criticism. Second interesting sort of result is that it creates variance, because it's easy to have a few ideas between the two of us or so, maybe 5 or 10 or so, even in a group, but 50? So you have to go really crazy to come up with sort of things to meet that goal. And this is what we want early on. We want variance. We want people really sort of to come up with really wild things, which you can always eliminate later. Yeah. So again, these are some sort of very basic rules. So when you put this all together, you have a thing called an innovation system. Process, organization, management, culture, an innovation system. And the job of a manager is to manage the system, to create such a system, to manage it, to improve it. And what I'd want to do is I want to just show you a couple of things. So let me just move the board over to this side. On how a system like that would work. Yep. So here we are. So this is where we came out. So we've got this innovation system that we sort of just created. And one of the important things is to note is that everybody has one. Maybe a bad one, maybe a good one, but everybody has one. And we need to make sure that when we think about all the elements like management, organization, culture, that they all reinforce each other. That the interactions between them are very important. It's not just about process, even though we often spend an enormous amount of time thinking about process, but the other elements are just as important. So, you know, the management has to be the designer and the owner, the architect of the system, which is sort of is behind it. Now, the system can consist of things that already exist. In fact, when you look at IDEO, very few of the individual things that they do are terribly new. You can find some of these things in many other companies. The novelty of this comes from the combination of how they put it all together in a system. That's really what makes it unique. And everybody can create their own system. Your system ought to be what you own. It's going to be sort of unique for what you do. Now I want to, just as a note of caution, I want to sort of just make sure that you don't go away from this day to day and you go back to work, and this is my biggest takeaway from this day was that I need to fail a lot more. So I want to be a little cautious about what I mean by that. Yes, failure is really important in innovation, but I make a sort of a subtle distinction between what I call failures and mistakes. You know, mistakes are something that really create no value. You know, you've done something on a project, do another project, you do it again. Mistake. There's no value added by basically not learning from the project last time around. That is very different. We certainly want to avoid mistakes, but we want to create an environment that allows for failure. And it's sometimes we sort of, when we're leading people, it's sort of our sort of signals that we send that really make a big difference. I know we've got some folks here from IBM here. So it reminds me of a really great sort of story that I heard about IBM, about old Watson, who was one of the people who really built IBM into one of, you know, to his greatness. And the story sort of is told as follows, that a young manager had lost $10 million for IBM. And the young manager was called into Mr. Watson's office. Being called into the chairman's office is not a good thing. And he comes into his office, and the young manager was very embarrassed. And before Mr. Watson could say anything, the young manager said, "Sorry, Mr. Watson, I take full responsibility for losing that much money for a company that I love, that I'm very proud of. Here's my letter of resignation." Mr. Watson looked at him and said, "Young man, have you lost your mind? I just spent $10 million on your education. Why would I want you to leave?" And so that's about messaging. right? Because in Mr. Watson's mind, you don't get it right the first time. In fact, getting it right the first time, I think, is often more sort of the output of luck more than anything else. It's more about getting it right as fast as possible. And that requires many iterations. So it's perfectly right. So Mr. Watson is, well, learn from it. You did the right thing. You took the right actions. You showed initiative. You did it fast. Learn from it and do it again and again and get it right. And just do it quicker than everybody else. Okay? So that's an important distinction when you think about that. In fact, sometimes I get really nervous when people get it right the first time because often, they attribute luck and think it's causal, that it actually sort of has some causal effect. It's a little bit like playing in the lottery and then believing that because you pick those lottery numbers, that's the way to do it, and you'll pick the same lottery numbers for the rest of your life. But it's surprising when you sort of think about often, when you sometimes run into managers and you talk to them, it feels like they're picking the same lottery numbers for their whole career because something happened really early on that made them successful. So you've got to be really humble about it and understand that there's a lot of luck involved, but it's all about speed. Iterating fast, learning very fast, and then getting it out. So what did they do? Well, IDEO didn't come up with this system overnight. In fact, a lot of the things that did not work, we don't see here because they don't show it. Probably for every successful thing that we saw here, they tried 10 things that did not work. But that's okay. They saw this system was a result of a lot of experimentation that they sort of went through. And when they decided what to do about this project, they ended up going, by the way, a huge discussion about this project. They ended up going for option 1. They ended up accepting it. But 2 reasons: they trusted Jeff Hawkins, which was important because they knew him. But most importantly, they said, we're never going to get this resolved unless we try it. Because otherwise it's just a debate. The only way we can find out what the limit is we have to try it. And we have to then minimize the cost of sort of the failure itself if we do fail. And they learned a lot from it. And for example, they learned that secrecy, the level of secrecy that they found in this project was something that was not acceptable for their culture. They really hated that. So they said, we're never going to do a project that has that level of secrecy. So sometimes you just have to run the experiment to find out what sort of the challenges, where the limits of your systems are. So the challenge for you is, imagine Polish television comes to your organization and says, we'd like to make a 20-minute video of your innovation system. What would your people say? What would they see? What kinds of experiments could you sort of name? That's the challenge for you. It's something that I would like you to think about, sort of go forward. Because this is really sort of at the heart of what you do. And of course, we saw a lot of wonderful little practices that you can put to work right away. So thank you very much. We'll take a break, another one. Just 15 minutes, because what we'll do after the break, I'll just do a brief lecture. I wanted to say a few more things that kind of to tie things together, some additional advice. And then I want to have maybe a few minutes at the end for some Q&A. So questions that you may have on your mind, we can maybe just discuss freely. Yeah? So really be back in 15 minutes, please. Yeah? Yes. 5 minutes before 2, sharp here.